please give a warm, exciting welcome to guest moderator Josh Horowitz and filmmaker Keanu Reeves.
Hello. Thanks for coming out on a Sunday.
I can't think of a better way to spend a beautiful Sunday afternoon in New York City than coming indoors and talking about this kick-ass film, Keanu.
Well, that's very kind of you, Josh.
This is an awesome film. I've complimented you already, but you should hear it in public one more time. I've seen this film twice, and it's a great piece of work. And for those of you that don't know, this is an impressive work, and that this is Keanu's directorial debut, which is an amazing achievement for any first-time.
Thank you very much.
So I guess my first question is, do you feel, I would think as an actor for many years, you're always exposing yourself to an audience. You feel a little bit naked out there every time a film comes out and hoping for their approval. Does it feel a little bit more of your soul is out there on display when it's your directing effort? A little more nerve-wracking this time around?
It's different. I would say you certainly feel more responsible. You know, I'm not one of those actors who doesn't go see the finished film. I like to see what the director did with it, or what, how was the story told. And in this time, it was my responsibility, and so I felt that. But I like the film very much, which helps. And do I feel? Yeah, I would just say yes. You feel more responsible, and in terms of that. You hope people enjoy it.
Were you, like if I'd spoken to you 10 years ago about possibly directing, would that have been on your mind? Was this something on the checklist of something to get to at some point?
Maybe 8 years ago. 10, maybe 9. But, probably about 8 years ago I started thinking about that. And then it was just, for me, it became just like, I'm looking for a story to tell. I would love to direct, but I needed a story to tell. And Man of Tai Chi became that story.
It's as you can tell from the trailer, or those of you that might have seen the film already, it's an incredibly ambitious film for any filmmaker, let alone someone that's the first time behind the camera. Had you directed anything before? Had you done a short, a commercial, anything?
No. Maybe some dinner parties.
They were really well orchestrated dinner parties.
They were just like, okay, let's put that over there. No, I hadn't.
And is that so? Were there? Obviously, you've worked with some of the greatest filmmakers on the planet. You have to glean some wisdom working with them over the years. And I would assume, I would assume that you maybe didn't have the natural jitters of a first-time filmmaker this first couple days on set, or were they nerve-wracking times?
I never felt it in the context of that, in the sense of you've never done it, or I just felt like I had a story to tell. I was very familiar with a lot of the rooms, having produced, and so I'd been in the editing room, I'd been in pre-production, I'd been developing scripts for over 10 years, so I was, casting I've been a part of, but it was the first time that it was, my responsibility. Certainly in the post was where I had probably the least experience, in terms of being part of editing or post sound. I'd been involved in the color correction before. So for me, and obviously the shooting floor, I was very comfortable in. I felt at home. So I never really thought about, I never kind of went in and went like, on the first day of shooting, like, I've never done this. I don't know, I felt like it was just like, okay, so like, what are we gonna do? Let's see,
Totally.
And in prep and all of that, again, I'd had experience. And I was working with great collaborators, a wonderful cinematographer, great producer, production design, and so the collaborative part of it, I really enjoyed, and I had a lot of support.
Well, let's talk about some of those collaborators, because first and foremost, obviously, your leading man in this one, Tiger Chen, is a friend of yours, someone that you guys may have heard of the Matrix films. I don't know if you've heard of that. He first met Tiger Chen on those films. Give me a sense of how that relationship went from friendship, working collaboration, to this project in particular.
I met Tiger Chen, in probably 1997. He was part of Yuen Wu-ping, who was the action director for the Matrix trilogy. And at the time, we didn't know it was a trilogy, but anyway, the Matrix film. The directors knew it was a trilogy, but we didn't. And anyway, so he was responsible for training the actors in movie Kung Fu, which involves actually real training. So we were stretching for 2 hours, we were punching, kicking, and doing all of the wire work. And through the course of these years and this time spent together, when you're stretching for 2 hours from across from someone who's like driving your legs open and pushing you down to the ground, you kind of like, it's like, so where did you grow up? God, fuck! What? Chengdu? Yeah, what's it like in Chengdu? You know. And so we became friends. And so, you know, he's actually in, I think he's in Reloaded. But he started acting. You know, he was in Lawrence Fishburne's film. He was doing roles. We kept in contact, and around 2007, he sent me a script. And I was like, that's nice. And I'd like to work with you, you'd like to work with me. And I was like, well, let's try and find another story. And so then over the course of the years, we started to develop a story, which was, this is a long answer.
No, it's a perfect answer. You're doing great.
But
more grunting, please. More screaming and grunting.
Okay. Everyone wants the action. So do I. And so Tiger has he has a master. You know, that's one of the things I would ask him. Is like, tell me more stories about your master. He has a very traditional martial arts upbringing and training. And he's also a very modern guy. And so Man of Tai Chi is inspired by, for me, this part of him. You know, there's a lot about the film that's, you know, a modern, in the contemporary world, in modern China, Beijing, Hong Kong. How do we hold on or maintain our authentic self? How do we have, you know, tradition in the modern world? How do we not have the modern world consume us and everything? And so Tiger, to me, is like the source, the well.
You mentioned, it's funny because when I was watching it for the second time yesterday, there's some, I was talking to you backstage, there are 11 kind of set pieces, huge fights in the film, and some, all of them very striking, but one of the ones that affected me most is one of the master kind of apprentice sequences, and I, as a Star Wars fan, thought of like those lightsaber duels, which I think part of the reason those always resonated with me was the relationship at hand. And I'm curious in terms of like, when you approach a fight scene, do you reference other films, whether it's, you know, great kung fu films or a Star Wars film, or do you kind of just go instinctual? Where do you start?
With all of that, I mean, we, you know, just I'm a fan of kung fu films. I'm not an aficionado, but I've seen a whole bunch of them. I love them, you know, since I was a kid, and you know, and also in terms of designing the fights, you know, I looked at a lot of kung fu films just for the editing style, where are they putting the camera, and because my hope was to take these sequences and not make them just action sequences, but to make them dramatic sequences, and that we're watching a character change. You know, Tigers gets involved in underground fighting, and he's interested in externalizing his power, and he gets a little intoxicated. So I wanted these fights to have an emotion, a visceral impact and connection, and hopefully make them immersive. And then with the shooting styles, they do have different feels to them, editing style, camera, etc.
And let me just thank you, because someone who's seen a lot of film for my job and for fun, to actually be able to understand the choreography and see what's happening in a fight scene. It's a pet peeve in recent years for me, and I'm sure for other people, that it's just too frenetic, right? Am I alone here?
No, but that has its place, you know? I mean,
Right.
if we think of the Bourne films, for me, is where a lot of that was really